Every alien fleet in the galaxy agreed. Humans were insignificant. The numbers were astronomical. Tens of thousands of warships, billions of advanced soldiers, fleets coordinated across light years. And then there were humans. A dozen starships at most, outdated, mismatched, lightly armed, and largely ignored. The Compact's Grand Council debated, calculated, and predicted a human extinction event that would take place within hours. To them, the humans were already gone in every meaningful sense. But humans didn't calculate first. They acted first and survived second. Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies were alive with activity. Civilians were drafted into auxiliary service. Engineers bolted extra armor onto fragile ships. Medics prepped emergency bays, and commanders reviewed strategies that the galaxy would call irrational. Humans listened to the alien predictions with quiet focus. They did not argue, they did not protest. They prepared. The underestimated species' galactic maps displayed sectors under threat. Humanity was near the edge of every diagram, not a critical point, but a footnote. Alien commanders openly mocked human designs, weapons, and tactics. In strategic meetings, they called human crews lucky at best, suicidal at worst. Humanity, however, had always thrived on adversity. While alien fleets relied on overwhelming firepower and perfect coordination, humans trusted instinct, adaptability, and tenacity. Even civilian vessels were retrofitted for combat, and crew members who had never fired a laser before were trained overnight. Each starship became a blend of ingenuity, desperation, and stubbornness. The null tide emerges without warning. The null tide arrived. It was not just a fleet, not just a weapon. It was a reality-consuming anomaly that erased stars, planets, and entire systems without trace. Alien fleets scrambled to contain it, but every tactic failed. Simulations collapsed. The galaxy was facing an extinction-level threat. Humans received their orders: evacuate, retreat, save what you can. And yet they refused, not out of arrogance but out of necessity. Ships moved forward into the unknown. Convoys were protected. Civilian habitats were evacuated. Engineers ran systems beyond safe limits. Each human ship, no matter its size or age, became a critical link in a chain of survival. Formation of the human line, the human fleet, though tiny, began forming a line at the edge of annihilation. Mismatched ships, old frigates, hastily reinforced transports, and experimental vessels joined together. The formation was chaotic, imperfect, and surprisingly effective. Destroyers shielded transports. Cruisers provided fire support. Scouts moved ahead, reporting anomalies and hazards. Alien observers could not understand it. Losses mounted, yet the line held. Algorithms predicted collapse after each attack, yet humans redistributed, adapted, and persevered. The first clash, the null tide, struck the human line. Ships vanished, consumed silently by the anomaly. Weapons failed. Shields flickered and died. Crews evacuated, some losing their lives in the process. Yet other human ships moved forward to fill gaps, protect civilians, and hold positions. A young captain on a battered frigate made a decision that would echo throughout the galaxy. Instead of retreating, she ordered her crew to advance into a sector no one else dared to enter. Sensors flared with anomalies. Enemy forces paused, confused. That hesitation saved thousands of lives. Alien analysts recorded the behavior with growing unease. No species had ever done this. Logic dictated retreat. Survival metrics dictated collapse. And yet humans persisted. Human resolve news from other sectors began filtering in. Colonies on Mars and Europa reported coordinated evacuations. Systems long considered lost were holding. Communications revealed crews who were scared, exhausted, and facing death, yet determined to protect one another. "Stay with me," one officer said in a log. "I know you're scared. So am I." The Compact's predictive models failed. Data streams overflowed. Alien commanders were forced to recalculate in real time, but humans did not behave according to any algorithm. They were unpredictable, emotional, determined, and frighteningly effective. Expanding the battlefront as hours turned into days, human fleets continued to hold positions thought impossible. Each engagement cost lives, yet civilians were being evacuated. Engineers repaired damaged ships mid-battle. Medics treated casualties under fire. Communications officers relayed messages of hope and reassurance to populations that had expected to die. The null tide slowed where humans concentrated. Alien fleets adjusted their strategies, attempting to mimic human unpredictability, but failed. Every attempt collapsed into chaos. Observers whispered that the humans were not merely surviving, They were changing the battlefield. Internal conflicts and heroism section officers debated on command bridges, choosing between self-preservation and duty. A young ensign risked her life to manually override a failing drive core, keeping a convoy alive. On another ship, a veteran captain sacrificed herself to shield a civilian vessel from annihilation. Every loss carried weight, yet human crews accepted it with grim determination. Alien fleets noted that fear did not break them. Loss did not demoralize them. Instead, it motivated them. Preparing for the next wave, the null tide, frustrated by human resistance, shifted focus. It attacked more aggressively, consuming stars and empty systems. Human crews anticipated the changes. Sensors were recalibrated, fleet formations adjusted. Communications remained constant. Evacuations continued despite overwhelming danger. An alien observer finally whispered, "They fight worse when winning and harder when losing. Why?" No answer came from algorithms. The humans simply carried on. The first section ends cliffhanger. By the end of the first week, casualties were staggering. Entire squadrons were gone. Civilian populations were partially saved. Human ships, though damaged, continued to hold lines that should have collapsed long ago. The null tide paused, disrupted by human presence. Alien fleets withdrew slightly, bewildered by what they were witnessing. The galaxy began to understand something terrifying. Humans could not be predicted, controlled, or erased. The line held, and humanity endured. Rising against the impossible, the null tide pressed relentlessly. Alien fleets, retreating to preserve numbers, abandoned territories that should have been defended. Humans did not falter. Small, mismatched, underpowered ships moved forward into the breach, forming defensive lines to shield civilian convoys and unarmed transports. Each ship had a purpose. Old frigates became shields, damaged destroyers provided mobile cover, and scouts probed the anomaly for weaknesses. Commanders made decisions in real time, improvising where no strategy could anticipate. Human ships adapted to constantly changing conditions, countering attacks that should have overwhelmed them. The null tide slowed where humans concentrated, destabilized by chaotic and unpredictable behavior. They do not retreat alone, alien analysts observed with growing unease. Ships that should have fled stayed. Crews risked everything to protect others. A transport carrying civilians was surrounded by two battered cruisers, engines overheating. Crew members manually adjusted shields, taking personal risk to ensure the convoy survived. Every lost ship bought time for others. The humans' priority was never self-preservation but collective survival. They endure loss, entire squadrons vanished. Cities and colonies burned. Casualty reports stacked faster than they could be delivered. Yet the line never faltered. Each surviving crew adapted to new conditions, repaired damage, and rejoined the fight. Humans improvised weapons, rerouted power to failing systems, and made split-second decisions that no algorithm could anticipate. Alien command watched in disbelief. Losses that should have shattered morale instead strengthened resolve. The null tide's advance became inconsistent, slowed by human unpredictability. Human Truth 3, they choose others over themselves. Evacuation corridors were established at great personal cost. Ships took positions guaranteeing destruction to protect millions elsewhere. Medics and engineers risked lives to save civilians and crew alike. Communications officers kept lines open, relaying messages of hope even as the line collapsed. Humans did not calculate risk in isolation. They acted for the greater good. An alien counselor asked, "Why do they persist?" A human liaison responded, "Because if we stop, no one else will." Escalation and heroism, the null tide, frustrated by human resistance, altered attack patterns, striking with increased ferocity. Entire sectors flickered out of existence. Human crews anticipated and adapted. Damaged ships were redirected. Shields were manually boosted. Weapon fire was coordinated in real time by officers running from bridge to bridge. A young captain risked her life boarding a derelict ship to repair critical systems, saving hundreds. A veteran crewman sacrificed himself to shield a convoy. Alien observers documented these acts, unable to compute their effectiveness. Emotional and irrational choices produced strategic outcomes. The turning tide days passed. Human line held. The null tide began to falter against unpredictable tactics and sheer resolve. Alien fleets slowly returned, reinforcing sectors humans had stabilized. Yet humans remained the central axis, their sacrifices defining the battlefield. Every surviving ship held a piece of the line. Every crew member was essential. Losses were high, but the humans' presence had changed the war itself. The first major victory, a coordinated counterstrike led by humans, halted the null tide temporarily. Using feints, ambushes, and chaotic maneuvers, they disrupted the anomaly's advance. Ships that should have been destroyed survived, while damaged vessels found new purpose. Civilian convoys were safely evacuated from previously lost sectors. Alien commanders recorded this unprecedented event. Humans had not destroyed the enemy, but they had contained it. A species previously underestimated had just rewritten the rules of engagement. Emotional resonance and legacy communications captured moments of heroism and human connection. A medic comforting a dying officer, a captain sending a final message to her family, engineers sharing food with exhausted crew. Each act fueled morale, inspired survivors, and destabilized enemy calculations. Alien observers concluded that humans were not just resilient, they were unpredictable in ways that algorithms could not model. Their irrational compassion became a strategic weapon cliffhanger. Humanity alone at the edge by the end of the second week, most human ships were heavily damaged. Casualties were immense, yet the remaining crews held. The null tide, though powerful, had been slowed, destabilized by human unpredictability and sacrifice. Alien fleets, now cautious, realized humans had become the keystone. The galaxy had underestimated the heart and endurance of humanity. The human line remained unbroken, poised to face the next wave. The galaxy understood something it had never anticipated. Humanity could not be erased. Humanity alone holds the line. The null tide had consumed everything in its path, yet human ships still stood. Burned, battered, broken, yet coherent, they formed a defensive line that defied logic. Alien fleets observed cautiously, unable to predict human behavior, unable to intervene without risking annihilation. Human commanders coordinated in real time, improvising solutions to problems no simulation could anticipate. Damage control parties worked tirelessly, and civilians assisted wherever they could. Every crew member's decision had life-or-death consequences. Despite overwhelming odds, humans held. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because someone had to. The Compact realizes the truth. Alien counselors, watching transmissions from the edge of the battlefield, could not believe the outcome. Predictive algorithms failed. Models collapsed. No strategy could account for humans' resilience and unpredictability. Logs revealed humans prioritizing others over themselves, improvising against impossible odds, and enduring unimaginable loss without surrendering. A human officer sent a simple message: "We do what must be done. If we fall, someone else will continue." The Compact realized that humans were not just survivors. They were a force of moral and strategic unpredictability. Containing the null tide with human fleets holding key choke points, the null tide began to falter. The anomaly, designed to consume everything in a predictable, efficient manner, recoiled against the emotional, chaotic actions of humans. Alien fleets cautiously returned to reinforce the sectors humans had stabilized. Yet humans remained at the center, their actions determining the battlefield. Heroic maneuvers, improvisation, and sacrifices made the difference between total destruction and containment. Every decision, from manually rerouting shield power to sacrificing an aging destroyer to block an advance, had critical impact. Heroism and sacrifice, every human ship became a story. Engineers venturing into vacuum to repair failing engines. Medics holding bridges to shield crew. Captains refusing to abandon convoys despite near-certain destruction. Communications officers kept lines open, transmitting hope and guidance. Alien observers documented these behaviors with unease. Human irrationality was effective, unpredictable, and terrifyingly consistent. No algorithm could replicate emotional resilience. No calculation could anticipate moral choice. Turning the tide, days of relentless human defense and sacrifice began to change the course of the null tide. Entire sectors that should have fallen remained intact. Civilian populations were evacuated. Remaining fleets regrouped around human lines, relying on them as the backbone. Alien commanders, now watching from safe distances, began acknowledging the humans as the pivot of the battle. The humans' combination of courage, ingenuity, and selflessness had shifted the galaxy's perception of war. Aftermath and recognition, the null tide, while not destroyed, had been contained. Human survival had prevented complete annihilation. Casualties were immense, but millions had survived because humans refused to abandon the line. The compact updated records, species, human threat assessment, existential contextual strategic value, irreplaceable long-term impact, defining addendum. Humans are dangerous not because of what they destroy, but because of what they refuse to abandon. The legacy of choice galactic protocols were rewritten. Evacuation thresholds were adjusted. Defense priorities were changed. Species that had once dismissed humans now honored their perseverance. Humans did not seek recognition. They simply prepared for the next challenge, knowing their choice had defined a new standard for the galaxy. Young civilizations would later ask why the galaxy changed its approach to war. The answer was always the same. Once humanity stood when no one else would. Not because they believed they would win, but because they could not leave others behind. They were outmatched. They were outnumbered, yet they remained human. The defining moment long after the battle ended, the story of the human line was told across the galaxy. The lesson endured. Strength lies not only in firepower or numbers, but in the choice to stand when retreat is easier, to endure when loss is certain, and to protect others despite cost. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity's heart proved as formidable as any weapon.